So, Miss Katie, thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk about the company that you have and you serve our community with. So it's Aurora Behavior Analysis.
Yes.
When you sent over your bio, and I started reading some of that, kind of got chill bumps about how you got started in this. Can you take us back to I don't know if it was pre-college, but it was college where things kind of changed on your path. Why don't you start your story right there for us so we can bring people on this journey with us?
Absolutely. And this is kind of the part where I really reach out to high school students and college students of it's okay to not know. Like you can change your degree. You might not have any idea what you're doing. I actually started having panic attacks in high school because I was like the overachiever and didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And
society tells you, I mean, you feel with the pressure that you got to have it all figured out, but sometimes the timing's not right and you just kind of have to go with it. So walk us down that path that you went.
So my mom was dealing with a high school senior having panic attacks. I knew I wanted to do something different. I was kind of leaning toward deaf education. I grew up in a family where my mom was like, be a teacher, and my dad was like, be a doctor or a lawyer. And I'm not good at history or blood, and I didn't really want to teach.
But what about the deaf interests you? Did you have people in your family like that?
No, I grew up doing sign language just in the church and the community and stuff like that. It was something that I loved doing. So my mom set up an appointment for me to talk to the director of communicative disorders, and I went the speech therapy track, doing speech therapy with like a minor in audiology. And it was kind of one of those things of like, I guess I can do this. There were some things I was interested in. I actually got invited to a conference in Ohio, and it was kind of like a free trip to Ohio, and I was 19, so I'm like, I'll go check it out.
So are we talking freshman still in college?
Yeah, freshman, going into sophomore year kind of deal. And I sat at a table, and it was a World Mission Summit. So it was a table where everyone sat with missionaries from all over the world, and I was expecting the usual, like, what's your major? English. Oh, great, we can use you. What's your major? Oh, awesome, you can use you. And I was so used to, by the time she got to me, I was like, speech, you can move on, and she stopped, and she was like, oh my gosh, we need people like you. And I was like, what do you mean? And she told me that she worked in a country far off, and she worked in a special needs orphanage. And she began telling me stories, and it was one of those moments where it rocked my world. Everything that I did from that moment was like, I'm going to go to school, and I'm going to learn this, and I'm going to go and I'm going to help in this orphanage.
So she was just telling you, or did you get the opportunity to go?
Yeah, well, the plan was I was going to graduate and go and stay with her. Once I graduated, the country was closed. And so I spent all these years like gearing myself up that this is what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And then I couldn't do it any longer. So I took a job. Some personal things happened, and I started working for Early Steps. I became a speech therapist assistant, or SLPA, for Early Steps. Absolutely loved it. And I think it was there that I realized that I didn't have to go to another country to meet a need. Like, started working with different families and seeing things that were in my own backyard. That was like, wow, like I can do something here.
The need is great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You don't have to leave America, to meet that. So there was a couple of things, realizations there, but really I'd started working with this little boy. It was early intervention, so he was about 2, and he had what we'd call more severe form of autism. And he was quick. I worked with him in a church, and he would run around the tabernacle, and we'd play, and he was a handful, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I told my supervisor, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like, if I could just work with him all day, every day, and just like blow bubbles and work on sounds, like, this is what I want to do. And she told me, have you ever heard of ABA? And I was like, no, ABCs, what are you talking about? And she had worked in an ABA clinic in Florida before when she was working on her speech degree. Told me about it. There just so happened to be a master's program in my area that opened up. Joined that and fell in love. Just feel like I won the lottery. Love what I do.
So talk to us a little bit about what ABA is for those who probably don't know.
So ABA is the science of human behavior, and we apply it to help individuals in socially significant and meaningful ways. And so to really stress that of we work on things that are going to be important for them, that is important for them to improve the quality of their life, whether that's at home, whether it's in a school setting. There's companies that work with adults and really just finding ways to help them that's meaningful.
So what started you on this this path working with this kid that had autism? Now, is the ABA strictly just for people who've been diagnosed with autism, or does it cover a lot of different diagnoses?
It because it's the science of human behavior, it covers so much. There's companies that work with adults. You can see it in the mental health field, working with individuals that struggle with addiction or addictive behaviors. Working with kids that have autism is kind of what we're most known for.
Sure.
So, we're not a special needs daycare.
Right.
We just kind of help, wherever we can.
So you're the company that you own. You guys are not in the business of diagnosing people of what they have. You're here to help them enhance their quality of life so that they can learn better, be more socially accepted. I don't know if that's a right term, but be able to interact more socially or to communicate their wants, their needs, and their desires. Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, absolutely. For their benefit. So there's kind of a reputation or some saying in ABA of what's the word I'm looking for? There's critics that'll say ABA, you're just looking to change that person.
Right.
And that's not what we do, especially at my company. We're not going to take a kid that's introverted and make him prom king if that's not what he wants. It's a pretty crummy life, though, to not have one friend and to not have some connections. Brene Brown has a saying that without a sense of love and belonging, that they're suffering, So having them develop relationships that are meaningful for them.
We had a podcast a few weeks ago with Maddie and Joe Ellen that bringing the A school here, new charter school for kids that are on the spectrum of autism. And through that, that conversation that we had, I did not truly understand how wide that spectrum is and how scary it has to be, not only for the parents, but for the kid having to endure the things that come along with being on that spectrum. Listening to them talk, and I think you could probably give us some examples of how the techniques that you use, I think, can be transformational for not only that child, but for that family. Just being able for a kid to be able to communicate what they want has got to be impactful.
Absolutely.
Do you have any stories that you can share with us on how it doesn't have to be anything miraculous, but just it's how the little things that through the techniques you guys are doing can have a major impact in kids' life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I listened to their podcast and she said it beautifully. You met a kid with autism. You've met one kid with autism. It is very different. And that's what I love about ABA is there's over 300 evidence-based scientific interventions, but it's individualized. What does that kid need? And we tailor that intervention. It should always be tailored to what does that individual need? What's going to work best for that kid in that moment? And what needs to happen in the environment for that kid to be successful? So that's one of the things that I love about ABA, but we also work not just with kids that have autism, but kids that have behavior disorders. And so that's kids with emotional behavior disorder, conduct disorder, oppositional defiancy disorder, adjustment disorder, anything that falls under that scope of behavior disorder.
You feel like we try to over-medicate our kids just because we haven't given them a chance to look at an alternative? I believe that we do. We put too much on. I'm not saying medication is not needed in some cases, but for that kid that they say has got ADHD, well, let's look at it. Is the kid just being a kid? We need to do a little bit of redirection, or do we need to medicate the kid? What you guys are bringing to the table is not medication. It's actually taking practical approaches to meet that child where it's at. Correct?
Correct.
So what are some of the techniques that, just for those like myself that are unfamiliar, what are some of the techniques for a child that is just not communicative, that's not expressing what they need? Maddie shared a few of that, which I thought was interesting. Can you share a few more techniques that you guys use?
Absolutely. So with behavior analysis, for my company, we try to be very, very collaborative with other professionals. And so we work with the speech therapist, working with the occupational therapist, working with the physical therapist, and really taking their expertise and their lead in conjunction with our knowledge of what we know about human behavior. And so we also have kids that benefit really great from AAC devices. We have some that are using sign.
What's the device you're talking about?
I'm sorry, augmentative communication device.
So what is that?
That's like you see the little tablets where they push the buttons to communicate things that they want and what they need. And we do that when we have that kid has a speech therapist, working with that speech therapist together on a plan, so that way they can practice and use that device.
What kind of confidence do you see a child gain by just being able to go from not being able to tell its mom, hey, I'm hungry, to being able to hit a button and say, I'm hungry, and they get what they need?
One of the amazing things we do is everything is data-driven. So we record behavioral data, we record the skills that we're teaching, whether it's working or it's not working. And one of the things that we really focus on is if we have a plan in place and that plan's not making progress, it's not the kid's fault, it's ours. And so let's look at it, see what we're doing, and modify it so where they can be successful. So with the data, for example, we have a kid, we had finally gotten an AAC device in, and we had worked on prerequisites and done some things before, and we watched that child's aggression go from over 30 to 6 in 3 days.
Wow.
In 3 days. So it's very impactful. And there's a funny saying of, if you don't have data, you're just a person with an opinion. And so we have data showing like, okay, this is working and this is successful and this is improving their life. Or, okay, this isn't working so well. What do we need to do different? What can we do instead? Is there a different way that we can teach this? Do we need to go back a step and teach this first? And then is what we're teaching, is this meaningful to them? Is this going to be important in their lives? So, for example, as a behavior analyst, I do parent trainings, and I meet with the families on what would be the most meaningful in the house. If you could fix this one thing, life would be so much more peaceful. It'd be just a little bit easier. And I have some parents that are like, that we still co-sleep, and it's working for us, and I sleep. Well, that might not be an important goal for them at the time. And then I might have other parents who's like, I can't sleep, he can't sleep. We need help. And so we work on what's going to be important for that family.
How much of this involves actually training the family? It's not the child that's broken. The child just is communicating, wants to receive information different than what we're giving it. How much of this relies on you having to teach the parents, here's what we need to try to get a different result?
Absolutely. A lot, everything. So I'm actually in a PhD program right now, and I'm doing my dissertation on generalization. And something that I really stress to our parents is, if what we're doing in the clinic isn't generalizing to home, if it's not generalizing to school, if it's not generalizing to the community, what am I doing other than bringing your kid in a clinic setting, keeping them for a few hours, and sending them home? And that's where that relationship is so important, to me, ethically, just as an individual that cares about my clients, of what I'm doing has to be generalizing to these other areas, other than what am I doing other than wasting your time and his time or her time, So it's a key piece.
I would have to assume, and you can correct me if I'm making too many assumptions here, I would have to assume that, as the spectrum of autism is so wide, there are many other diagnoses that are out there for kids and adults that have behavior, I don't know if you call it issues, but I'm going to go simple terms, behavior issues, that go undiagnosed. What would you say to that parent that's struggling with a child's behavior, what are some of the things they need to look for to be able to go back to their pediatrician and say, hey, look, I think we need to look at this, and here's what I want you to see? Is there any information you can give to just parents that are maybe frustrating and just not understanding that there is hope out there? How should they be able to move forward to try to receive care for their child, or get them on a plan that's going to be productive?
Absolutely. So definitely talking to the pediatrician. One of the things that's really difficult to see in this field is the number of families that need an evaluation by a clinical psychologist, and the wait lists are very, very long. But getting on multiple, wait lists, getting on there early and just going and talk,
So
to
is there a shortage of clinical psychologists here in this area?
someone.
Or is the need so great they stay pretty busy?
I think they stay pretty. I think they stay pretty busy. There's been a lot of new providers in the area, which has been really nice and really refreshing, especially ones that accept Medicaid and accept different insurance companies. But as a parent and working with parents, you don't quit fighting for your kid.
Sure.
And so
But I think the fight
fight along.
sometimes is I just don't know what to fight
Yeah.
at that point. So you would say that definitely if you have a concern and whatever's worked in the past with a pediatrician give you, and it's still ongoing, just amp it up that next level and say we've got to have someone else involved. Someone needs to take a little bit deeper look because we don't have the quality of life that we need to have.
Absolutely.
When you start working with a child for the first time, family comes in, I'm sure you'll probably meet in a group setting, family, child, and everything. What kind of process do you work through before you're able to come up with a plan for the family? How long does that normally take, or is it going to be different in every case?
It is different in every case. It really depends on the behaviors, the severity of the behaviors, and what it is that family needs. Before we can even see the family, we have to have a clinical diagnosis. So it's got to be from a clinical psychologist. And then once we get that and we have an opening available, we meet with that family. I meet with the parents mostly and go over, we never want to discuss behaviors in front of the child.
Absolutely.
And that's something we really stress at our work too is they hear everything.
Mm-hmm.
They hear even if you think they hear.
They do.
They hear everything. So meeting with that family and really seeing what are their top priorities. What is it that they want to work on? And then we work with the kid and we kind of do some assessments of, do you know your name? Can you match colors? Can you point to things? How are you communicating what it is that you want and need right now? As well as where are they in life right now? Are they in a school, and how are they doing in school? Is this something where the parents are having to continually be called into the school? Are they in homeschool? What's their life? Are they a 17-year-old and they're looking, to branch out more and make more friends or ask somebody to prom, and they want some help with their social skills?
Sure.
It's whatever that family needs and wants. That's in the best interest for that child. So we meet with the kid and kind of see what's going on. We take a lot of data, a lot of baseline data, and do some assessments, and we come up with a plan together with the family on this is what we're thinking. We identify the function of the behavior, and put a lot into it and work together as a team to see how we can best help.
Would it be safe to say that if the family is putting their all into this, that results will come from it? Now, the results are going to probably need to be measured because each child is going to probably perform at their level, which is going to be different than others. But there's a proven track record this system works, right?
Yes.
Tell some of the success stories, a few more of kind of what you've been able to see in a kid to be able to take them to that next level. Because I can imagine starting to work with you, I don't want to give the impression that once they start working with you, they're going to be with you forever. Yeah. But kids are going to hit different milestones, and they're going to need a little help along the way. Yeah. So is this, tell some of the success, and then what kind of longevity do you see the ABA role in the child's life through, adolescence all the way up till adulthood?
Yeah. We like to joke that we're kind of like Nanny McPhee. We want them to want us and not need us.
Right.
So a lot of times...
That's good. I like that.
Thank you. So a lot of times whenever they start working with us, they assume, we're going to sit at a table and we're going to work all day. And that's not at all what we do. We want them to like us. And we want them to want to be with us. And then we can start teaching.
There
And
you
then
go.
we can start working on things. And so once we get to that point where it's kind of like, all right, you want us, but you don't really need me anymore, and we have data showing, like, maybe a clinic setting's not the best place for you. You need more.
So tell me about that. You may need more than just a clinical setting. So do you work with patients, or are they patients or clients?
Clients.
Do you work with clients outside of the office?
Yeah.
So tell us about what those environments look like.
So, for example, in the afternoons, we see a lot of our kids that are just kind of need a couple hours a week where we work on social skills. So we really work with that group on going into the community and doing different things. Our company, for example, we sponsored a couple of kids last year to play different rec sports. And so that looks like they got assigned to a team, and their therapist went with them to their first baseball game and their practice and helped them with any directions that they might have missed, that they didn't hear or didn't catch from somebody across the field, or different things like that. Really helping them be a part of this community, which is a really amazing community.
Yeah, so I agree with you. Here recently, I would say that you're the third person we're bringing in, like almost back to back, talking about the need for our kids is great. I decided to, along with my wife, be a CASA volunteer for this year. We got certified and we got assigned our case. And I know that what we're talking about today is not necessarily about the least of these in our community, but man, the need in our community is so great to invest in our future. And our kids are our future. I know it's kind of cliche for a lot of people to say that, but it truly is. If we want our community to go to the next level, we have to have better citizens to take us to the next level, and to look at people like yourself that's willing to invest, and Maddie and Joelle and their whole team that's willing to invest in our kids. There are kids that will, because of this, that will be good, productive members of society because there were people there to be able to help them. Am I missing the point on that?
No, not at all. And that's another thing that I really love, and I'm very grateful in the field that I work in, is we accept clients with every insurance, especially Medicaid. And sometimes it's so hard to get resources and help for all of our families.
You know, when I was preparing for the interview that I did with the ACE school, I got on the Ouachita Parish website, and I went to their special education, and I started going through the forms that they had on there of how to evaluate a kid for, I don't know what the title is they classify these kids at. And this podcast is possible because of your support of our real estate business. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, I'm confident we have the tools and the processes to help you reach your real estate goal. For more information or to reach out to us, check out the podcast description for our contact info. The behaviors that they had listed within it, and it started getting so technical. I'm like, how is a teacher in a classroom, if we want our kids to be assimilated and not segregated off to where they're doing their own thing under their own way, and we want them to be integrated, and I think is important in a lot of cases, how is that teacher going to effectively teach a whole entire class when, number one, our classes are full to the max in most cases? The teacher, I don't believe, is getting the support that they need within administration all the time. I mean, there's isolated cases. And now we have a kid that has some special needs, that needs some additional attention, or is having some behavior problems that require some help. How do we go to that next level if we can't have professionals like you coming into the schools to make that happen? Now, I know you mentioned that you have, in some case, y'all do have some limited access to come in and assist some of that. Tell us a little bit of what that looks like and what you're able to do within our school system.
So the 2 years prior, we were able to provide services in the school system to where that client was able to have a one-to-one therapist for the hours that were needed.
Right.
in that classroom. So
So what you're saying,
again,
it didn't have to be the whole entire class, but wherever they thought it was
exactly,
needed within.
exactly, because again, we want them to want us. We don't want them to need us. We want them to be as independent as possible. And then, like state law, we want them in the least restrictive environment.
Sure.
And so we were able to be in the classroom with the kid for, the hours that were needed. And we took data. And when they didn't need us, we weren't there for that hour. We were there if that kid needed 30 redirections in an hour to follow that teacher's instructions. We're able to be there and provide 30 redirections in that hour to where she can continue teaching the class. And if we needed this worksheet done, working with the teacher, working with the school psych, working with the counselors on an intervention that's best for this kid,
Right.
so that way they can function in that classroom. It was brought to our attention this year that in the MOU agreement, it was a misunderstanding. We were under the impression that it was at the discretion of the principal. They're stating now that we're not allowed in more than 2 days a week, 45 minutes each, which in some cases, that's fantastic. In some cases, that still gets my foot in the door where I can help that kid the best that I can and working with that teacher and kind of get a visual of what's going on in that classroom and identifying, some people call it triggers, I call it antecedents of what's happening right before that behavior,
Sure.
to where I can maybe then take that and work on it in the afternoons in a clinic setting or work with the teacher and
So you
find
got to see something real world that is affecting day-to-day life.
in that moment.
Now we have something that we can start working on and building on.
Right.
And I know probably a lot of these kids, and I think we have some great professionals in our school system.
Absolutely.
A lot of these kids probably are assigned a para that's working with them.
Some.
But when you get to a point to where that child needs more, I mean, just more just precise things that the teacher just doesn't have the training, the para doesn't have the training for. That's all you're asking for, right? It's just to be there for that. So I don't want to come across as I think our school system is not doing right by our kids, but there's obviously a disconnect somewhere that someone says that there has to be some type of limitations. Now, when you're in the schools, as far as being able to give feedback to the teachers, the principal, and to higher administration, I mean, is there an issue with you giving them, data, or this is where we're at on our test, or this is where I see our next level of being able to go, or are you able to share the data?
Yeah, it's all collaborative. And so
Okay.
I'll say we have some amazing teachers and administration in this parish. We really do.
Oh, and I know that we do, and I don't want to come across saying that we don't,
Absolutely.
but we all, on every level, hit our limitations of where we can be effective.
Yeah. So, it's been our experience, every teacher and administration within the schools has been absolutely wonderful to work with and has been very open to, like, this is our data and this is what we're seeing, what's going on. What do you think? What are your thoughts on this? And working together on a plan that works best for that child. And, there are ABA services in like our next door neighbor parishes. Like ABA is in Lincoln Parish, ABA is in Caldwell, but for some reason Washita Parish, this is just kind of what we've been given to work with.
Well, I hope that that'll change at some point. I know we've got a new superintendent, and you can't have I can't have an expectation that he's going to flip a switch and every detail is going to be perfect. But I'd like to encourage the administration to really look into this, because
Absolutely.
the services you're bringing to the table cost the school no money, correct?
Nothing. This is all through the parents' insurance. So it says in the MOU agreement and the state law that parents responsible for this, and so it isn't. And then even when liability is questioned, the liability insurance is provided by the company. And so, like, for instance, my company, we have Washita Parish under a liability insurance. So even the liability I'm taking on that. I'm taking on that responsibility of, I said, my trusted line technicians in the school working with that kid in that classroom, and if something goes sideways, I take full responsibility for that.
Sure. But you haven't ever had anything happen, have
I
you?
have amazing staff. They're supervised by me. They're going through training. We have registered line technicians, but we also have registered behavior technicians. So those are some of the staff that took an extra step and did an exam to get that extra credential, or so to speak. And they've been working with me for years. And
So a couple things I want to make sure that people understand is that number one, we love and support our public schools. If there's a way to have enhanced access, the need is still there. The need is great.
Absolutely.
I don't think any teacher within our school system would turn down help if it's going to make their job easier and more productive. So I'd like to see that looked into a little bit. But until that time comes, you'll work in the bounds of what they've set forth, and life will be great.
And I do want to make it very clear, and we've stressed this before, and I stress this to my staff. Whenever we're in that classroom, it is never my goal or intention to take over that classroom and tell the teacher how to teach. We're there to help that kid in the best way that we can.
Just like that parent is for
collaborative with
for
that
every
kid.
other.
Right.
There's a lot of peers that are assigned to a child to help that child do whatever, and they're not there to disrupt the class. They're actually there to try to help keep a little more order, and so the teacher is not having to focus on that one child more than all the rest.
Right.
So I get that.
It's where the teacher can teach.
Correct, because we have pretty full classrooms that's out there, and I still feel like our teachers in a lot of cases are underappreciated for the work that they do. I couldn't do it. They work a lot harder than I do on a daily basis. I mean, they have one of the greatest charges in our community, and that's to educate our youth. Well, one of the things that I'm pulling out of this is that this is not, although it's this ABA is helps a lot of kids that are on the spectrum with autism. Autism is not the only diagnosis where there's behavior issues that can be benefited by someone that specializes in it like yourself. Taking it just a little bit further, you're in the process of starting a nonprofit.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and kind of how that works within your life?
Yeah. So we've had some clients that it was time for them to transition to school, and with us only able to go the 45 minutes twice a week, it wasn't able to meet that medical necessity. It wasn't what that kid needed. So we created, in the process of creating a nonprofit, we're converging it now to where we're able to have homeschool instructors, to where that the parents, we wanted to provide an option for our parents. So we didn't want our parents to have to face the decision of, I legally have to enroll my child in school. I either legally enroll them in kindergarten and they can't have their behavioral therapist, to which we've shown there's a medical necessity that they need a therapist with them for this amount of hours, or I quit my job and I homeschool my kid. It wasn't enough for us. And so we created what's soon to be a nonprofit, Defy, to where we provide a homeschool instructor, and she works with the parents and the families and the behavioral therapist, to where that kid can get both ABA therapy as well as instruction. And so we provide the curriculum and provide the instruction and give that to the parent. The parent's responsible for the grades. So it works a lot like other homeschool co-ops that you see in the area,
Right.
but where it's integrated with the ABA.
It's fantastic. How many kids would you say, if we just, I use the term very loosely, throw the kid into kindergarten, but I mean, if the state has requirements for a certain level of education, the kids have to be enrolled in school, but are there some kids that socially they can't handle it? They can't handle going into that environment. It's too much stimulation for them right now. Is that an issue that some parents face?
Possibly, yes. Yeah. And then it's making sure that these families know, if they have a kid that does have, I say, a different ability or a diagnosed disability,
Sure.
That before school starts, getting the evaluation through the school system and getting the IEP in place and getting the team and things that child needs before they go into school.
Fantastic. Why is this a passion for you in your life? I mean, so I'm a small business owner just like yourself, and I absolutely love what I do, but I meet people that own businesses, and I have to wonder, why do you own a business? They're good at it, but you don't see that fire in their eye. You don't see that passion. But sitting across the table from you, you enjoy what you do. You enjoy the gift that you bring to parents and kids. Why is that so special for you?
They're so worth it. They're so worth it. we joke at work that, find another job that's like this. Like it's fun. And I will tell anybody on any day, I have the most amazing staff and I have the cutest kids. And I'm biased, but I proudly say I have the most amazing staff and the cutest kids. And I work in an environment where the kids want to be there and the staff want to be there. And that's something that's very meaningful to me too, is watching staff find a purpose, and being a part of something bigger and outside of yourself.
Mm. Yeah, you tend to hear comments like that from people who absolutely love what they do and has that commitment for growth. And to see you start a nonprofit that is here to enhance what you already offer to people who have some limitations just goes to show your love for what you do and for your staff. How big is your staff right now? How many clinical or
Yeah.
what are your titles? I'm going to
Registered line technicians or
Those
behavioral therapists.
yeah. So how many people do you have that work for you?
So we are growing. We're in the process of expanding right now. Right now we have about 12 line technicians. I have a BCBA and a BCABA. So BCBA is board certified behavior analyst and a board certified assistant behavior analyst. And it's really unique position for me in this time of my life because I started as a registered line technician where I'd get to see these kids grow and the progress that they make. And now as a business owner, I'm seeing my staff grow and the process that they're making. And
How rewarding is
it's
that?
incredible. It's incredible. I joke and I say like these kids, but like when they started and they were in undergrad and they're getting their degrees and they're passing this really, really difficult exam. BCBA exam's a difficult exam. It's got a lower pass rate than the bar exam, and they're passing this and they're getting their first caseload of kids and they're helping these kids. So as these guys are coming up and passing exams, that's where we're growing.
If we shift gears just a little bit, I see the passion that you have for your clients, and I see the passion that you have for your people and watching them grow. But talk to us from a business perspective. How did you make that decision that says, I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to start this? Surely you didn't start out on your own. You were with someone originally, I'd have to assume. Mm-hmm. But how did you make that shift?
I never wanted to really own my own business or operate it. This wasn't, a dream that I had of mine. I worked for several companies before in the past that started out really small and they grew really big, really quick. And I think I found myself in different positions where I didn't really feel aligned with my core values or my core beliefs in a way, and decided to take a jump.
So when you took that jump, I know for a lot of people, it seems like it's too big to be able to make happen. But when you do it, how rewarding is that? There's going to be risk. I tell entrepreneurs this all the time. There's risk in everything that we do. But you want to try to make those risks as risk averse as you can and make good calculated risk decisions. Yeah. So where's your facility located at?
We're at 208 McMillan, and we are in the process of hopefully opening our second location on 100 South 2nd Street.
Wow, second location. Mm-hmm. When you started down this path, would you ever imagine that you'd be sitting here talking about opening up a second location?
No way. No way.
I think your story is great. I love what you and your company are doing for our community. I have learned a lot here recently about the need for it within our community to serve the kids where they're at, to be able to get them to next. And I love what you said about we're not here to change a kid. We're here to give that kid that ability to make changes that they want to be able to make. And how far will it go? Well, who knows? It's going to go as far as y'all want to take it. And also love the fact that you don't want them to need you. You want them to want you to come back and get involved because of the growth that they're seeing and the
Absolutely.
confidence that they're building within themselves. So, I mean, it sounds like you got an amazing team that works with you. I'm proud to say that you're a great businesswoman within our community, and I love the growth that you guys have. And if there's anything we can do to help promote you down the road, man, just let us know. Thank you for
you.
just serving our community the way you're doing it.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time to watch or listen to this podcast. We really appreciate your involvement. Please leave us a comment, or even better yet, subscribe to this podcast and hit that notification bell so that you can be alerted for every new episode when it hits.